Hello everybody, this is Daniel Zabala and welcome to my YouTube channel. In this video we're going to be doing level 1 basic finance in a 10 level financial education course that I'm starting here on YouTube. So I'm going to be coming at financial education from 3 different angles or 3 different perspectives, just to give you a heads up. First off, we're going to be approaching finance from an academic standpoint, as I have a master's in finance, kind of some of the details of how the academia teaches about finance. Then secondly, we're going to be talking about finance and financial education from a biblical standpoint. For Christians, what does the Bible say about money, the good, the bad, and the ugly? And thirdly, we're going to be looking at finance from a real-world application standpoint. I've been very passionate about the stock market and business for over 10 years, well, stock market for over 10 years now, both with trading and investing, and I've been an entrepreneur for over half my life. And so that's what we're going to be talking about. So please, if you like this content, please like, share, and subscribe. Definitely share it. If you found this information valuable and helpful, we're going to dive right in, and hope you learn a lot. And this first level 1 is a foundational basic finance course, and it's like I said, a 10 course module, and they will get deeper and deeper as we go along. So let's dive right in. So path to financial freedom. So on the right we have a basic 7-step process that everyone can start with. If you're like most people, you probably don't have a financial education. What little you know about finances and money, probably if your parents taught you about saving and investing and managing your money well. But unfortunately, most people aren't taught this. They just don't know. And the traditional, the school systems do a horrible job about preparing people for the real world, both with work and with finances especially. You learn little to nothing in your preliminary education in college, too. You don't learn a lot unless you literally go into finance. Even then, there's a lot that, even with a master's degree, that I did not learn in my master's in finance program. So this is a simple, very basic process. Okay, so for everybody, step 1, develop a budget and financial plan. Eliminate waste from your life. You'd be amazed at how much money the average person wastes on a monthly or annual basis simply because they don't plan, they don't have a budget. It doesn't have to be complicated, but just knowing how much, once you get your paycheck, how much you're going to be giving, how much you're saving, and how much you're living off of, how much you're allowing yourself to spend on eating out or entertainment on a monthly basis and a yearly basis. You'd be amazed if little things too. You might, every time you go out to eat, if you simply stop ordering a drink and just get water, I mean that adds up. It can be a few hundred or maybe even a few thousand, over $1,000 in a single year of money saved, as an example. So develop a plan, a budget, start eliminating personal debt as fast as possible. Credit cards, pay off your car, things of that nature. And then step 3 is build an emergency fund. Okay, which an emergency fund is 6 to 12 months worth of living expenses. So if you calculate that you need a minimum of $2,000 a month to live off of, then your minimum emergency fund would be 6 times 2, which is 12, so $12,000. So somewhere between $12,000 and $24,000, that would be your emergency fund. But if your quality of life requires much more than that, then you got to calculate that too. Step 4, if your employer does matching through your 401k, you want to make sure to max that 401k out up to the amount that they match. So whatever you contribute to your 401k retirement plan through your employer, if they match, for example, say 5% of whatever of your income, you want to max it out, because if they do matching at 100%, that means whatever you put in, if they match it, that is free money that you're leaving on the table if you don't do that. That is so important. We'll get more into retirement later on. And I'm going to try and move quickly, but this is just to be a general overview. If you have questions about details of anything, for sure, come back to certain slides, or you can go to Google and do more research, and I'll be making more content as the years go on, as time passes. So step 5, max out your Roth IRA. If you're doing steps 1 through 4, The next logical step is to open up your own Roth IRA account. So an IRA is an independent retirement account, and being a Roth IRA, it's tax-free on the backside. So if you invest, which we'll also get into this in another course, but if you, for example, invested $5,000 or $10,000 one time, after 30 or 40 years, I mean, that's going to grow to a substantial amount. If it's at 12% interest rate, it could be over $1 million, and that would be tax-free in a Roth IRA. Whereas in your 401k, on the backside at retirement, that money, whatever it grows to, you're going to be paying taxes on. And so max out your Roth IRA. If you're under 40, you can put in $6,000 per year. As of now, it's 2020 right now. And if you're over 50, you can put in $7,000 per year. And learn to set SMART goals and keep building momentum. We'll go over SMART goals in a minute. And be a cheerful giver every step of the way. Because God loves a cheerful giver, and we have the privilege of partnering with God in ministry and giving back to Him, because it all belongs to Him, and every good gift is from God. So we should be thankful and cheerful givers, and not to give begrudgingly or out of a feeling of obligation, but we get to give, and it all belongs to God anyways. So Luke chapter 16 verse 10 says, "Whoever can be trusted with very little can also be trusted with much. And whoever is dishonest with very little will also be dishonest with much." This is talking about the heart. I mean, this is Jesus talking right here, actually. So if we can trust with little, God sees that, then He can trust us with more. And if we're dishonest with little, we'll be dishonest with a lot. So my dad would always say, money makes a good person better and a bad person worse. It just really just shows a reflection of the heart, but this is what the Bible says right here. So in Matthew chapter 12, verse 35, Jesus also says, "The good person out of the good treasure brings forth good, and the evil person out of his evil treasure brings forth evil." It's again about the heart. That's what God cares about. So understanding some concepts. Okay, so types of income. So this is where it starts to really get more interesting. So that first slide was very basic. We're going to be building upon, knowledge as we go along. So types of income. Most people have no idea. There are different types of income. In general, there are 3 types of income. There's earned income, also known as ordinary income or active income. That's from your job or if you're self-employed. Okay? Earned income, active income, ordinary income, same thing. From your job or self-employed. Then there's passive income, from, for example, rental real estate, if you own rental property, or royalties, if you've created some music, written some books, own some patents that bring in income. That's passive income. And portfolio income has to do with, it can be a passive income like dividends, but it can also be a capital gains income. So there's earned income, passive income, and capital gains income. Capital gains is, for example, if you buy something like a firearm or some gold coins and you sell them at a higher price, that's a capital gains profit or capital gains transaction received when you sell something of value at a higher price than when you purchased it. And I'm not going to be reading all the details of these slides. There'll be a copy of the slideshow that you can access on your own, so if you want to read the details. But right now we're just going to talk, kind of have a conversation so I can explain these concepts and you can come back and read them later on. Portfolio income, again, for example, if you have some stocks you've invested in, they pay dividends or interest from bonds. That's portfolio income. Dividends, that can be like a passive income too. So 3 types of income in general, although there's 4 names here. And then thinking about trading and investing. Okay, so trading. So if you're a day trader in the stock market, or if you flip homes, that's a form of trading. Both of those are capital gains profits or capital gains transactions. Okay, and if you're investing for the long term, you got to think a long-term approach that follows the wisdom from the children's story, the tortoise and the hare. One buys into solid income-producing assets or businesses like stocks that will grow in value, produce income, or ideally both over the long term. That's the slow and steady wins the race, right? That's the tortoise. Eliminating debt, staying out of debt, investing little by little, right? So that is investing, right? Or if you see something really valued that's underpriced, it's on sale, that's a good time to invest potentially in something. So FIG, this is an acronym for just kind of another way of looking at it. So flip, capital gains, Flipping, so if you day trade, you swing trade, you buy and sell coins, buy and sell Forex, which is foreign currencies, flip properties, antique treasure hunting, if you find antiques and you sell it for a profit. It's all flipping, if you will, or capital gains profits. Income, cash flow, passive income. And that can be an apartment building that you rent out to people if you own it. Stock options are another thing, which that's lessons down the line. High dividend paying stocks, that's passive income. These are all forms of cash flow, which is a little bit different. All of this is cash flow. Well, actually, growth isn't, but anyways, kind of scatterbrained. Apologize with that. But anyways, growth. This is, hoping something goes up in value. So if you own residential real estate in a high demand area, you own it, you're not selling it. It's going up in value. If you were to sell it, theoretically, you'd have a profit. So that's growth, right? But there's no income coming in. For example, your primary residence. That's what people hope for, is that their house is going to go up in value. So for that, your primary residence is an investment, but not an asset, which we'll get into later on from purely financial terms. And non-dividend paying young companies, growth companies like Tesla. Tesla doesn't pay a dividend right now, right? They're growing like crazy. So the price is going up in value, but they're not paying a dividend. So there's no cash flow, but it's growth in terms of the value of the stock, right? Tesla, though, I consider speculation. And buying and holding Bitcoin or Ethereum for long term as an example too. It's not producing an income, but ideally it's going up over long term. Okay, so in Proverbs, I love the book of Proverbs. Proverbs 13:11. Proverbs is full of wisdom, lots of practical application. Dishonest money dwindles away, but whoever gathers money little by little makes it grow. Kind of similar to that tortoise and the hare, right? Gathering little by little, we make it grow. So here is what's called the cash flow quadrant from Robert Kiyosaki, author of Rich Dad, Poor Dad. This is a concept that he has in his books, so I just want to kind of go over it real quick. There are 4 sections of this quote-unquote cash flow quadrant. You have employees, self-employed, business owners, and investors. Employees have jobs. They trade time for money, and there's no leverage. We'll talk about leverage in a second. Self-employed owns a job, also trades time for money, also no leverage. Business owners own a system. True business owners, they have employees, they have people that produce income, produce money, and they're using leverage in different forms. And as an example, they're employees. And investors have money work for them, or money works for you. Money equals more money. Passive income, like rental property, stocks that pay dividends, things of that nature. So budgeting your accounts, checking and savings. So your budget, right? In your budget, you want to have some key components to it. You want to determine how much you're going to tithe, kind of a general way of thinking about tithing from a biblical standpoint. And there's no hard and set rule, but in general, tithe is 10%. So minimum 10% to God, and kind of offering, if you will be anything above 10%. It's one simple way of thinking about it. So you want to always give to God first, because it all belongs to Him anyways, and we should be thankful, right? And then you save and invest, so quote unquote pay yourself first, as some financial people will talk about in their financial courses, like pay yourself first, so invest. So give back to God, invest, and save, right? So maybe it's 10%, 10%, and then living expenses, maybe 80%, right? Your housing, your food, your gas, your car, your maintenance, insurance, and then also put your entertainment budget into your overall budget. How much are you going to allow yourself to spend intentionally on a monthly basis for fun, right? Because that's important. We got to live. You should enjoy the fruit of your labor, right? So your savings account can be used for emergency fund. Remember that. 6 to 12 months worth of living expenses, or big purchase goals like buying a car, down payment on a house, things of that nature. But don't ever count on a bank savings account to be quote unquote an investment. It's not. The interest rate on those accounts are negligible, they're next to nothing. So and if anything, it's actually kind of there's risk built in, but I won't go into that right now. So forget about the interest rate you get from a savings account. It's pretty much meaningless. Never ever use a bank to invest. Okay, don't trust a bank with your investments. Sure, you have your checking account, it's a savings account. It's for money you're going to be using in the short term, but for investing, don't trust the bank with it. You got to educate yourself and make some investments in other accounts as you learn and go along. Any money you have with a bank is actually a liability for the bank. So, and I won't go into that right now, but that's also a topic in and of itself to dive into. Is money you have in money that you have in a checking account or savings account is a liability for that bank. They don't want that ultimately, believe it or not. So they want to lend you money. So that's how they make money. And checking account, your credit union versus a bank, I highly encourage you to check out the benefits of, or the differences between a credit union and a bank. And also look into the difference between a credit card and a debit credit card. If you didn't know this, some credit unions might have your debit card for your checking account that you can run as credit, but it always pulls money from your checking account. For example, I'm a U.S. Navy veteran, and so I used to use Navy Federal Credit Union for my primary banking, and they had a debit credit card. So I could choose to run my debit card as debit, or I could run it as credit, building my credit score, but at the same time it pulled money from the checking account directly. So I never had debt. I was never using it as a credit card. It always pulled it from the checking account, but for my credit score, it helped. So that's a great little tidbit if you didn't know that. And make sure that you have overdraft protection on whatever type of checking account you have with your debit cards or your debit credit cards. Make sure that your checking account has overdraft protection so you don't get penalized big time, because a lot of banks, they'll get you if you're not looking out for that. So understanding debt. All right, types of debt. You have credit cards, right? Very, very typical, 10 to 15%, or 50, sorry, 50%. 10% is for those who have really great credit, who probably have higher income. But for the average person, you're looking at 18 to 50%. It's very typical for credit cards. If you have poor debt, you made unfortunately, some bad financial decisions in the past, you're at that higher end of the spectrum. And some forms of debt, like credit cards, accrue, which means accumulate interest daily. A lot of people don't realize that too. So you never want to keep an outstanding balance in your credit cards. Credit cards, ideally, it is God's will that we are not in debt. We want to be debt-free because we're to be a slave to no man. But they can be a tool used to build your credit score, right? You have to be responsible and wise with all your decisions. And in today's world, if you want to buy a house, for the average person, I mean, saving cash to buy a house is kind of very unrealistic for a lot of people. I mean, sure, you want to be wise, you want to sacrifice, and ideally, if you can buy your house, your primary residence cash, go for it. But I mean, that's awesome. That should be a great goal for anyone if they want to do that. But if you're like most people, you need to build your credit score. And so having a credit card as a tool to use wisely is important. And you never, like I said, never want to have outstanding balance. You always want to pay it off either right away or every month. That's really, really important if you're going to use credit cards. Payday advance loans, these companies are sharks, and I really don't like them. They are not there to help people. I mean, it's not unusual for them to have an annual percentage rate of over 400% interest that people that use them have to pay, or would have to pay if they keep a balance that long. They prey on the poor, on the lower income people, so people that have no financial education. And if you've done it in the past, I'm sorry that you have gotten taken advantage of by them. I know some people may feel like that's the only option or that they might have, but there are other ways, and definitely resources, people that can help. But these stay away from payday advance loans for sure. Personal loans through banks, lines of credit, bank overdraft charges, car loans, student loans, medical related bills, all forms of debt. You want to stay out of debt as much as possible. You want to get out of debt, be financially free. That means no debt, no personal consumer debt, that is, and your home loan. And for your home loan, your primary residence, you also want to get rid of that debt as soon as possible as well. Investment property is a whole nother topic, but your primary residence, you want to be debt free, right? And you want to make sure that if you do have a home or you're thinking about buying a home, you understand the difference between fixed rates and variable rates. That's important. Also topics to look up on your own. And on my website, there's a whole section on real estate and buying property all by itself. So if you want to read or find some more details about real estate, and if you're looking at buying a home, great resource is my website for that as well. Building that emergency fund, again, having 6 to 12 months worth of living expenses. That emergency fund, is for emergencies. If something unexpected happens, you get in a car wreck and you might have some medical bills, or a family member needs some help and you feel led to help them. Or it can be used for good things like down payment on a house, to buy a car with cash, and again, the unexpected and inevitable emergency. Life is full of heartache and tragedy, good times and bad times. That's the reality of life, right? The world we live in is a fallen world. There's sin in the world, there's evil in the world, and bad things do happen to good people, right? God is good and He is loving, but He does allow bad things to happen, and we have to trust Him through that, as hard as it may be. And but with wise planning, that can really help us through those hard times when we're talking about finances. He will always provide and make a way, but if we do our part as much as we can by preparing wisely, that helps when financial hardships hit in whatever form they may come. So wise planning. So prepare your work outside. Get everything ready for yourself in the field, and after that, build your house. So if you're young or thinking about getting married, or if you're in college and you're thinking about starting a family, or owning a house, whatever, it's wise to plan. It's wise to get your career in order. Get that college debt paid off if you can, or make sure you have a solid career before you go and start a family. So preparing your work outside, so preparing your career, whatever that looks like, before you start building a house, building a family. So food for thought there if you're young and thinking about that. So understanding retirement accounts. So we're 23 minutes in, and I think we're about halfway through this presentation. So I'm trying to go fast. I know it's a lot of information, but I'm trying to go fast without going too fast. So in general, type of retirement accounts, for most people, we're looking at 2 or 3 different types of accounts. 401k through your employer, which we already kind of talked about a little bit. Ideally, you want to do this if your employer has matching. If they don't have matching, invest elsewhere. Don't waste your time. Contributions are tax deductible now, but you pay taxes on the gains and profits during retirement. So for example, if you make $30,000 a year and you put $5,000 into your 401k this year, then this year your taxable income is $25,000. Again, you made 30 and as your salary, you put 5,000 in your retirement account, your 401k. That brings your taxable income from 30,000 down to 25,000 for this year. But again, whatever it grows to, you pay taxes on it in retirement. If your employer does matching, you want to max it out. I can't stress enough how important that is. You're literally leaving free money on the table if you don't. And that first year, if your employer is matching, you have a guaranteed 100% rate of return year one. If you put $5,000 in your account and your employer matches it, puts another $5,000, that's 100% return year one. So even if you're super conservative, that's a great way to start investing for retirement, is that 401k with matching. If there's no matching, don't bother, don't waste your time, invest elsewhere. You want to max out your Roth IRA, tax-free on the backside, right? And there's also what's called the traditional IRA. For tax purposes, a traditional IRA is taxed the same as a 401k through your employer. It reduces your taxable income now, but you pay taxes in retirement. Whereas a Roth IRA, it's tax-free on the backside, but it doesn't reduce your taxable income now. You want to talk to a CPA if you're unsure which one you should be using, but kind of a general guideline rules is that $200,000 mark. If you make less than $200,000, almost certain it's probably you're going to be going with the Roth IRA. If you're over $200,000 a year in income, then it might make sense for you for tax planning purposes to do a traditional IRA instead of a Roth IRA. Again, that's something you would want to talk to a CPA to find out. But if you're like most people and you're watching this video, you're probably not making $200,000 a year, and so you want to be using that Roth IRA. Okay, maxing out retirement contributions, right? Which we already kind of talked about. If your employer does matching, it's a double bonus. It reduces your taxable income, and you literally are receiving a 100% return the first year that money is put into the account, right? So that's a no-brainer. You want to make sure to do that. In your Roth IRA, the maximum you can put into that account per year is $6,000. And if you're over 50, you can put up to $7,000 per year as a way of catching up, if you will. IRS allows you to do that. So this is the Rule of 72. Okay, this example shows you how long it takes money to grow, and specifically how long it takes money to double at a given interest rate. Okay, Rule 72, also called this is called compound interest, when interest grows on top of itself, right? So if you're 25 years old and you put $5,000 into some investment one time and never touch it again, and you invest at 3% rate of return, 3% profit per year, how long does it take $5,000 to grow? It takes 24 years for that money to double. What we do is 72 divided by 3, the interest rate, gives us 24 years. So 24 years from now, age 49, it grew to 10,000. At age 73, it grew to 20,000, right? Well, there you go. Let's say you can get to 6%. Very attainable, believe it or not. A lot of people don't know that. 72 divided by 6 is 12 years. It takes 12 years for that money to double. Age 25, you put $5,000 into an investment one time, never touch it again, at 6% rate of return, that's profit, and let it grow on top of itself. It takes 12 years to double. Age 25, age 37, 49, 61, 73, it grew to 80,000. Whoa, double the interest rate, but it's 4 times the amount. There you go. But that's not enough to retire on, is it? No, it's not. Especially when you factor in the fact that on average, inflation is about 4% per year. Inflation means the buying power of the dollar going down over time, especially now the Fed's just printing and printing trillions of dollars. It seems like monthly at this point, which is crazy. But 4% for inflation on average, and then if it's through a 401k, as an estimate, 1.5 to 2% for those taxes. So that $80,000, whatever that is, 40 plus whatever years from now is roughly 40 years from now is going to be worth a lot less than it is today. Let's say you get 12% somewhere. Well, turns out you can. The average rate of return of the entire S&P 500, which is the 500 largest companies in the U.S. stock market, averages about 10% per year. If that's all you did with long term, you can expect an average of potentially 10%. If the future is if the past is any indication of the future, which it's not, but let's say it is. 12% is very attainable. Okay, we'll get into that in one of the future course modules on investing, how to obtain not only 12%, but actually much higher than 12%. 72 divided by 12 is 6 years. That means your money doubles every 6 years. You invest $5,000 one time at 12% rate of return and never touch it again at age 25. It doubles every 6 years. By age 73, at retirement age, you'll have over $1.2 million. Now that's a lot better than 20,000 and a lot better than 80,000, right? Simply by knowing where to invest. And also the fact that time is on your side. Starting early. Starting early is the most important thing. For example, if you waited 6 years, you didn't start at 25, you waited until you're 31, you put that same $5,000 there, just knock off the bottom. You'd have only $640,000 at age 73. Now that's a big difference, right? Because it doubles every 6 years, right? Let's say somehow you can get 24%. You might be thinking, oh my gosh, that's crazy. Well, it's very attainable, and most financial educators are not going to explain how to get 24%. I am going to explain how to get 24% in future course modules, so you definitely want to check them out. If you can get 24%, which you can, most people don't know how, you could double your money every 3 years. 72 divided by 24 is 3 years. If you invested $5,000 one time at age 25 at 24% rate of return, your money would double over 3 years. By retirement, you'd have over $300 million. That may sound crazy, but it's very attainable. And like I said, I'll go over that in future course modules, how to attain that kind of a return. But definitely most financial people are not going to explain how. Anyone that sells mutual funds definitely isn't going to explain how. One, because they don't know how themselves, and two, you can't make 24% on average every single year in mutual funds. It's just definitely not possible. In fact, it's very hard to even make 12%. No matter what your financial advisor is quoting you on, oh, your portfolio is making 12%. Well, it's probably actually significantly less because of all the fees and costs associated with mutual funds. So, which I'll also get into in, I think it's level 2, making your money grow. So, 12% or 24% is attainable for just about anybody, but it requires knowledge, it requires discipline, it requires you taking initiative to educate yourself financially and then putting that money to work in wiser, better, more effective ways. So, setting financial goals, SMART goals. SMART is an acronym for specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and timely. I forget which one. It's either Harvard or Yale did a study years ago where they took a graduating class of their MBA students. Half of the class they taught the SMART goal system, the other half they didn't. They looked at all of those graduates 20 or 30 years later to see what they had done with their careers. And surprisingly, the half that were taught the SMART goal system did astronomically more with their careers than the half of the graduating class that wasn't taught the SMART goal system. Same caliber of individual, same graduating class, but simply by knowing how to set goals in a systematic format, that half that was taught this did way more. So financially, if you're setting financial goals, SMART goals. Specific. Who, what, when, why, and how. Is it measurable? Can the progress be tracked? For example, say you do want to buy a house with cash, okay? You want to buy what kind of house? What's your deadline? What are you going to have to do to get there? How much money are you going to have to save on a monthly or an annual basis? What are you going to have to do? Is that attainable? For example, if you just started your career and you say, I want to buy a house with cash in 3 months, probably not going to happen for most people. But let's say you're a nurse and you and your spouse both are making money and say, we want to buy a house with cash in 3 years. Let's say you each make over $40,000. That is attainable. It's possible. You have to work hard and sacrifice and save a lot, but you could do it, right? And is the goal relevant? Is the goal worthwhile? That is important to answer for yourself when you're setting goals. And again, is there a deadline, a timeline set? You want to set that, write it on paper. A good exercise is take a piece of paper and on one side, write all your dreams down. No matter how silly, how big, no matter how crazy they may seem, write all your dreams down on a piece of paper. Then flip that piece of paper over and write 1, 2, 5, 10, and 20 years. 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, 10, 20 years as a timeline. And then turn those dreams into SMART goals. And ideally, you want your short-term goals to help you get to the long-term goals. That's how you systematically create goals that you can work towards. Keep those goals in front of you every day, at least 2 or 3 different locations around your house or your car or whatever. So you see them all the time, so you can remind yourself, got to work on it, just little by little, chip away at your goals. Buying a car, right? If you're going to buy a car, unless you have $2.5 million or more in a net worth, my personal opinion is it doesn't make sense to buy a brand new car, especially with a loan. Don't go into debt for a brand new vehicle. Pay with cash. I'm not going to go into this a whole lot and go into depth with this, but if you buy a brand new car, and what kind of car it is, on average, that car is going to drop by 20 to 30% by the end of the first year of owning that vehicle. The second you drive it off the lot, it drops in value. It just doesn't make sense. In my opinion, it makes way more sense to buy a really good quality car that's slightly used, pay with cash, right? If you're young, if you're under 30, under 25 for sure, drive a beater. There's no shame in that. While everyone else is living paycheck to paycheck and in debt, you can be driving your $1,000 or $2,000 beater, or a few $1,000s beater, and pay it off with cash, and in a few years buy a significantly better vehicle and have some savings, and long term you're going to thank yourself for doing that. And also think that it's money that you spend or aren't saving now. What would 50 or 60 or 70-year-old you say to yourself right now, especially if you're young. Paying with cash is the way to go, in my professional opinion. It's a no-brainer. But once you have over $2.5 million in net worth and assets, yeah, sure, buy a car. I still think you should do it with cash, but brand new car, sure, fine. Or $1 million in liquid net worth. Assets, like producing income, or $1 million in liquid net worth, like you have cash in stocks and whatnot. So, but still, pay with cash. Buying a house. When you're applying for a loan on a house, you want to make sure that you know the difference between a mortgage broker and a bank lender. I think I am a real estate broker in the state of Kentucky. I always advise my clients when I'm helping them buy a house to get at least 2 or 3 pre-approval letters from lenders. And I tell them if they're only going to do 2, talk to a bank and talk to a mortgage broker, because they are different. Both of them will give you a loan for a house, but in general, one might have lower interest rates and higher closing costs, and then the other one would have vice versa, lower closing costs and maybe slightly higher interest rates. So that's that closing cost versus APR, annual percentage rate. And also understand and look to, I encourage you, if you're thinking about buying a home and you haven't before, or even if you have and you didn't know this, Google this, read up on it. What is the APR, which is that quoted rate they're going to quote you, that interest rate, and then the actual interest rate incurred. What are you actually going to be paying? And it's always slightly higher than the APR, so just be aware and be ready for that if you didn't know that. In general, for most buyers, there's 2 types of loans they're looking at. An FHA home loan, minimum down payment is 3.5%. A lot of people were taught by their parents, oh, you need 20% to buy a house. You don't. Minimum is 3.5%. In general, if your credit score is below 700, you're looking at an FHA home loan probably. If your credit score is above a 700, you might be able to go the conventional home loan route. Okay, home loan route. Minimum down payment is 5%. Okay, again, on my website, there's a whole section, a whole tab, a tab with like I think 4 or 5 different sections you can look at, and a slideshow all by itself with no video, all about the home buying process. Great resource. I highly encourage you to check it out if you want to know more about buying homes and how it works. And then rural housing and other programs. If your income's lower, you don't have a lot of savings or not the best credit score, that might be a good option for you. Is rural housing and other government programs that are there to help you buy a home if it's a goal and an aspiration of yours. And also, if you didn't know this, for example, on a 30-year mortgage, 30-year loan for a house, if you make one extra payment each year, you'll end up paying that 30-year mortgage off in roughly 22 years. You knock 8 years off the life of the loan by making, roughly, give or take, by making one extra monthly payment every year. So instead of making 12 payments, make 13. You'll pay it off much faster. And if you can do it faster than that, great, go for it. Get out of debt. Become financially free. And be wary of reverse mortgages. They tend to prey on the elderly. Okay, make sure you really talk to someone that knows their stuff. If you've been presented with the idea of reverse mortgage, learn about it, read up on it, really understand it. If that's something you're thinking about doing, I would stay away from it. Balloon mortgages, a lot less common now, but 10, 20, 30 years ago, very common. And what they'll do is they'll look great for 29 years, and then year 30, they'll tack on a huge payment that is almost the amount of the original house. You'll end up having to refinance. You never have that house paid off. So you definitely stay away from balloon mortgages. And adjustable rate mortgages, not all of them are bad. It really depends on your goals. When I first became a realtor, I would always tell my clients, stay away from adjustable rate mortgages. But that was in my mind at least. But lo and behold, my first client to buy a house actually ended up using an adjustable rate mortgage, and it made sense for her situation. She got a phenomenal rate. It was like, I think, 1 or 2 percent points below what a conventional would be through a credit union. And, using a credit union to get her loan. And her goal was to own the house for about 5 years and then either have it paid off or refinance for a fixed rate loan and then turn it into rental property. And so her adjustable rate it had a schedule to where it would not change for the first 5 years. So it was a really low rate for 5 years, and then after 5 years it would go up, I think maybe about 1 or something percent, and then every 5 years it would adjust. And so for her, it was a great product and a great decision on her part. And it was just a really unique property, really good price, for her a good location, and just a great, really smart decision on her part. So really, not always bad for most people. I would encourage them to stay away from adjustable rate mortgages unless it really makes sense for your specific goal. Okay. Insurance. Types of insurance. You got home insurance, auto insurance. If you have a home, or if you have a car, you're going to have auto insurance. It's important that you shop around at least once a year, because they'll try and rate, whoever you're using is going to try and raise your rates, over time. And a lot of times you can get the same or better coverage simply by shopping around. This is actually advice that I didn't even follow till myself for a little while. I just actually replaced my auto insurance policy within the last month, and golly, I was surprised. A friend of mine sells home and auto insurance, and long story short, I got a quote, and he was able to save me over $330 a year, and I got more coverage on my vehicle. So yeah, definitely shop around at least once per year, and understand your policy. Make sure that if you do switch, you get prorated for the difference if you've already paid, and you don't get charged for time you're not using. So health insurance, also shop around, do your research. I'm not an expert on health insurance, but definitely do your research, read, ask questions, shop around, make sure you get what works best for you. And I'm not going to go into detail, but life insurance, you only need to buy life insurance if you have someone who depends on you financially, i.e. a spouse, kids, hospice parents. They really rely on you financially, right? So, and if you're going to buy life insurance, if you have those, you need life insurance. You want to buy pure term insurance. Any savings you have, invest the difference. Never, ever, ever buy cash value or whole life insurance. The same thing. And this type of insurance, cash value or whole life, there's over 100 names probably for it. And it's all the same thing, just packaged a little differently with maybe a slightly different name. and they're going to sell you on. You get insurance and an investment. Keyword, and. But if you read the contract, you will see it is never and. You get insurance or, quote unquote, the investment. And it's actually not an investment. Never invest through a life insurance policy. More often than not, it's going to be a loan. If you need that money, you're going to have to borrow it from the account and have to pay it back. Otherwise, you don't get your policy. If you or your beneficiaries, your loved ones don't get the policy if you pass away and you had to tap into that money. So you never get both. People that sell insurance and they sell whole life or trash value life insurance, as I like to call it, will sell you on. You get both. You don't. So never, ever, ever, ever buy whole life or trash value life insurance. Buy pure term insurance. Invest the difference. And once you're to a certain point financially, you won't even need life insurance, Lord willing, right? So, moving on. Legal services, and we're almost done. This is a longer session, but it's covering a lot of groundwork, and so we'll keep going. So, attorneys. If you've never talked to an attorney, it's probably wise to do so. If you have a family, especially, you want to think about estate planning as you get older. Think about a living will. Decide beforehand when to pull the plug or under what circumstances. Do you want to be on life support? Do you not? If something majorly horrible happens to you medically, you get in an accident, what do you want to happen? So a living will. If you're a veteran, you can check with the VA. They'll have documents that you can get for free to fill out and have a living will, which is for that pull the plug, as people, that common phrase. You also have a financial will. Who gets what? Right, when you pass away. If you're over 40 and you have a family, for sure, you would have a minimum of financial will, just because you never know, and no one knows when God's going to call them home, right? None of us know, so it's wise to plan for that. And then if you have over $100,000 in net worth, especially if you have rental properties, you want to seriously look into a living trust. Okay, that makes the process go a lot smoother. But always talk to an attorney, or I should say, it can make the process go a lot smoother. I'm not an attorney. It's important you talk to an attorney and find out that for yourself. But it very well may make a lot of sense to have a living trust. It's important to understand what that is and to possibly do that. And when you're getting married, you want to have a prenup. It's important to have. Just not going to go into detail there, but important that you look into that. Lawsuits, you would have an attorney already lined up just in case, right? That's wise. Unfortunately, if you're married and you do go through a divorce, it's important that you have an attorney that's going to help guide you through that, right? If you're in a car accident, emergency, suing or being sued, if you're a Christian, and you've never read this, I highly encourage you to read 1 Corinthians chapter 6 for yourself. If you're thinking about suing someone, just check that out for yourself. I'm not going to go into detail, and just pray about it and just see kind of what God would have you do. And maybe it's not a one-size-fits-all verse. It's really between you and God on that one. So just read up on it if you haven't looked at that before. Taxes, right? We're almost done. Understand your taxes. What tax bracket are you in? If you don't know what that even means, do some Google search, learn about taxes. Taxes may seem really daunting and overwhelming and confusing, which they can be, but they also don't have to be. I mean, there's some simple concepts that anybody can and should learn. One of those simple concepts is understanding what tax bracket you're in. Do a YouTube search. Find someone to explain the tax bracket system so you understand how the taxes you're paying are calculated if all you have is a job, right? Also, what type of income do you receive? Remember that cash flow quadrant that Robert Kiyosaki has? If you're an employee or self-employed, you're paying more in taxes on a percentage basis a lot of times than if you're a business owner or investor. Why? Because the tax system is set up to incentivize the general public to do certain activities. Two of those activities are create jobs and provide housing. If you do that, what the government wants. It benefits the economy. It helps people, ultimately, okay? And the byproduct of that is you're making money and you're saving on taxes. You don't have to pay as much in taxes. So a lot of people don't know that, so they're not able to take advantage of that. For example, President Trump, I don't know the details, but I'm willing to bet the reason he doesn't want to show his taxes is because he pays so little legally, and it's completely fine because he doesn't have a job, or he doesn't take a salary, even from his presidency, from my understanding. He actually didn't take the salary, right? So his taxes are minimal because he's a business owner. He's more so an investor. Different types of income are taxed differently. Your job is taxed differently than a business, which is taxed differently than an investment. Remember, ordinary income, passive income, capital gains income, right? Passive income is taxed at the lowest rate. And specifically, real estate has even extra tax benefits, a thing called depreciation, which lowers your tax rate even more, which I'm not going to go in detail in this video. You can look it up on your own or look at future videos. But having rental property, not only you have cash flow income, it's passive income, but you also lower your tax rate. So investors pay the least amount in taxes. This side pays less than this side on a percentage basis, and most of the time make a lot more money. So just something to understand, be aware of, look more into it on your own as you wish, as you want. I encourage you to learn about that. But it's nothing wrong with that. It's the way the system is set up. Not only in the United States, but a lot of most first world countries are going to have systems that may be similar to that. And it's getting harder over time, and more liberal policies want to raise taxes, but really that's going to help. Who's that going to hurt? High, middle class, and high income people who have jobs, not the super uber wealthy, because they have investments and businesses. And a lot of times they don't have jobs, they have investments. So how can you reduce your taxable income for the average person? 401k contributions, if your employer has matching, you want to do that. It's going to lower your taxable income. That's great. Talk to a CPA to figure out really how you're going to, the best way to lower your taxes. And maybe start a business, side business. You can, by simply having a small part-time side hustle, you can deduct certain things, like maybe your internet, possibly, or possibly car mileage, or computer or whatnot. So cell phone bill. It's possible. Talk to a CPA. Look into it for yourself. And professionals and resources you need. We're almost done with, I think 3 more slides or something. You want an experienced realtor, someone you know, love, and trust to help you with any real estate needs. And be loyal to your realtor, okay? If you know someone's going to help you with real estate, be loyal to them. They work really hard, and they work for commission only. So, and if they're helping you buy or sell, they're working really hard, and they definitely earn their pay. So, be loyal to them. Don't hustle people and use multiple realtors. Just pick one. Have an accountant, a CPA, for doing your taxes and advising on taxes and estate planning. An attorney as well for estate planning in any number of situations. If you're not wanting to educate yourself financially, make sure to have a really good professional financial advisor and shop around for that as well. 1 or 2 insurance agents. Again, you want to shop around once a year or so for your home and auto insurance policies. It's good to have a mental health coach. A few different mentors for various areas of your life. These are so important. And counselor. There's still a lot of stigma. A lot of people think, especially for men, I think there's a stigma behind going to see a counselor. And the difference between a counselor and a therapist, but either way, it's healthy to do. We all need to talk to people. One of my old roommates is a counselor. I learned a lot from him just through our friendship and conversations. So it's really important that if you need any concerns about your mental, emotional health, talk to a counselor. Maybe there's something you need to work through, or you want to work through, talk through with them. Sometimes we just need someone to listen. And final thoughts. So I'm not going to read this following passage of scripture, but you can read it on your own. Deuteronomy 14:22 through 15:11. Actually, I will read it, but that's how I'll finish the video is reading that. So if you've watched this video this far, I hope you've learned a lot. And this is a long session. I talked a lot. I talked really fast. It's a lot of meat to condense into just under an hour. But you can always look at the slides on your own, and to read them, come back to this video look up the concepts that maybe you had questions about. Look it up on YouTube, do a Google search, and I'll be making more content as time goes on. So I hope you like this content. I hope it was helpful. Please like, share, definitely share this video with others that you might find it beneficial, and please subscribe if you feel led to do so. And so with that, I'll have some final thoughts. So if you want to stick around, feel free to do so. So the following passage of Scripture was given to Moses and God's people in the Old Testament. God calls his followers at this one point in the Old Testament to look something more or less like this. Okay, so in this Old Testament passage of Scripture, in the Old Testament, right, under the Mosaic Law, God calls his people to give 10% tithe to the church, if you will, 10% for throwing epic fellowship type parties where God's children get to enjoy the first fruits of their labor. Surprise, you probably didn't know that. And 3% was allocated for taking care of the poor, foreigners, orphans, and widows. So a total of about 23%. This is an average breakdown because if you once you read the passage, you'll see, wait, 3%, 7%, or every 7 years, 3 years. So it's kind of confusing, but anyways. Because God loves a cheerful giver, it is something that we get to participate in. A modern version of this might look like 10% tithe to your church, 10% offering to maybe some nonprofits that you really support, or helping the poor, orphans, and widows specifically. Jesus in the New Testament says if you want to know what pure religion is in God the Father's eyes, it's taking care of orphans and widows. And then 3% for hosting fellowship events. That's more than enough, I think, for just about anybody for hosting some fellowship. It doesn't be anything crazy. Just, maybe providing for some snacks or maybe a pizza or two for some friends to have a Bible study or something, have some fellowship. So 10% tithe, 10% offering, and 3% out of your budget for hosting fellowship events for helping people there. So, just not even helping people, but just creating an environment of fellowship where we get to do life together in community because we need relationships as people, as humans. We're built for relationships, even though they're hard, right? Loving people is hard at times, but essential. And we need love as well. And God expects us to give back unto him because not legalistically, but remember, it all belongs to him. We are merely managers. The Bible uses the word stewards, which means to be a manager of. You can also see Abraham's tithe in Genesis 14 and Jacob's tithe in Genesis 28. Both of those are pre-Mosaic law, the law of Moses, which is where we get the 10 Commandments. So giving a tithe, giving back to God, is biblical from the earliest. Genesis is the first book of the Bible, so it's good and important that we do that. And then the last book of the Old Testament actually talks about should we rob God? I don't think so. So we shouldn't rob God, by denying bringing those tithes and offerings into his house or to bringing them before God. So it's important that we do it, that we tithe off the top, everything that God blesses us with to begin with. And a simple plan would be to tithe 10%, save 10%, live off of 80%. That's a great starting place. But tithing 10% should never be the end goal for the believer, for the Christian, the follower of Christ. Jesus is the Lord of our lives, right? So we're to be faithful to him. So Deuteronomy 14:22 through 15:11 says, "Be sure to set aside a tithe of all that your fields produce each year. Eat the tithe of your grain, new wine and olive oil, and the firstborn of your herds and flocks in the presence of the Lord your God, at the place he will choose as a dwelling for his name, so that you may learn to revere the Lord your God always. But if that place is too distant, and you have been blessed by the Lord your God and cannot carry your tithe, because the place where the Lord will choose to put his name is so far away, then exchange your tithe for silver, and take the silver with you, and go to the place the Lord your God will choose. Use the silver to buy whatever you like, cattle, sheep, wine, or other fermented drink, or anything you wish. Then you and your household shall eat there in the presence of the Lord your God, and rejoice. And do not neglect the Levites living in your towns, they have no allotment or inheritance of their own. At the end of every 3 years, bring all the tithes of that year's produce, and store it in your towns, so that the Levites, who have no allotment or inheritance of their own, and the foreigners, the fatherless, and the widows who live in your towns may come and eat and be satisfied, and so that the Lord your God may bless you in all your work, in all the work of your hands. At the end of every 7 years, you must cancel debts. This is how it is to be done. Every creditor shall cancel any loan they have made to a fellow Israelite. They shall not require payment from anyone among their own people, because the Lord's time for canceling debts has been proclaimed. You may require payment from a foreigner, but you must cancel any debt your fellow Israelite owes you. However, there need be no poor people among you, for in the land the Lord your God is giving you to possess as your inheritance, he will richly bless you. If only you fully obey the Lord your God, and are careful to follow all these commands that I am giving you today. For the Lord your God will bless you as he has promised, and you will lend to many nations, but will borrow from none. You will rule over many nations, but none rule over you. If anyone is poor among you, your fellow Israelites, in any of the towns of the land the Lord your God is giving you, do not be hard-hardened or tight-fisted toward them. Rather, be open-handed and freely lend them whatever they need. Be careful not to harbor this wicked thought. The 7th year, the year for canceling debts, is near, so that you do not show ill will toward the needy among your fellow Israelites, and give them nothing. They may then appeal to the Lord your God, and you will be found guilty of sin. Give generously to them, and do so without a grumbling heart. Then because of this the Lord your God will bless you in all your work and in everything you put your hand to. There will always be poor people in the land. Therefore I command you to be open-handed toward your fellow Israelites who are poor and needy in your land. I hope you found this video helpful and educational. God bless you. Again, please like, share, and subscribe if you feel led to do so. And until next time, over and out.